So we talked about on Friday's show, Paul Pelosi having an intruder come in his house, beat him with a hammer. Now, we're going to take a look in a second here at some of the unhinged right wing response to all of this. But before we do, a little bit of a detail to show you how close we came to something even worse. Paul Pelosi luckily got himself to a phone, called 911, and then left the phone sitting there. So he wasn't able to call the police and tell them what was going on, but he very courageously and intelligently got a phone, called 911, and then just left it sitting there. And so the 911 operator was able to decipher kind of that something was wrong and get police there very quickly. So good job to the police response in that situation, and great job to Paul Pelosi, because that could have been the difference between life and death for him. And so that's kind of one detail. But the other, I'm sure you're aware of by now, and we mentioned a little bit on the show, is it's pretty clear that this guy was a right-wing conspiracy theorist and talking about all of the things you know, all of these right-wing conspiracies that we hear so much about. And that is, even though, of course, official investigators haven't yet been able to publicly say this, obviously the motive. He's a right-wing conspiracy theorist, and he wanted to go after Nancy Pelosi, and he was screaming, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Well, that seems like a pretty clear story. Right, left, or center, I feel like it'd be pretty easy just to go, that's horrible. I hate that. Mm-hmm. And if you're on the ideological side that clearly this guy was on, maybe you go a little overboard and be very, very clear that, listen, I condemn this so deeply, and I want to make clear to all my current followers, we do not respect violence, and this is an absolute tragedy. Nope. Instead, we saw a bunch of, hey, this is just an example of the horrible job Democrats do to manage crime. Hey, this is just, a lot of people get hit by hammers, says Jesse Waters. And why are they responding so much more significantly to this hammer hitting than they respond to other hammer hittings? And Elon Musk, as you'll see here, posting out a link to an article. There's a tiny possibility there might be more to this story than meets the eye. And you're thinking, well, that's fascinating. Oh, look, the awful truth. Paul Pelosi was drunk again and blah, 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 blah. Well, as was highlighted on Twitter, Musk today is tweeting out a story from the Santa Monica Observer, the same outlet that reported Hillary Clinton had died and been replaced by a body double for a debate with Trump. So Elon Musk, a very powerful and influential person, and now clearly on the right, is taking this opportunity where a public figure was violently assaulted for political purposes, and likely this person wanted to kill Nancy Pelosi once she got there. He's using the chance, or this chance, to cast doubt on that. Now, what you have to do in a situation like this is wait until you have a whole lot of evidence to come out and change the story, right? You would have to get a whole lot of evidence to throw out, especially if you're as influential as him, something to all the people who keep up with you to say, maybe this isn't as much of a horrible tragedy as we should all feel that it is. But no, Elon Musk decides, I'm going to send out a link to an article from a publication that is so not credible that they said Hillary Clinton had died before a Trump debate, and they sent out a body double. Yeah, that's the publication that we should be going to for our news and our evidence of this not being as accurate of a story as it's being told in the mainstream media.
Wow.
So brutal. And it shows you that maybe the, or it's clear, not maybe, definitely the inability to understand media literacy and where you should go for information gathering isn't just everyday people. It isn't just the you and I's of the world, and much of the right wing who has a hard time with that, and some on the left as well. Even a billionaire with access to as much information as he'd like and very well educated also doesn't know where the heck you should go to get your information, which is pretty unfortunate. Another example of this is a congressman tweeting out, this is Clay Higgins, an homage to this same conspiracy. The moment you realize the nudist hippie male prostitute LSD guy was the reason your husband didn't make it to your fundraiser. And then for our podcast listeners, it's a photo of Nancy Pelosi, and it looks like a photoshopped or something bruise there on her eye. So trying to say something, but the story that's being told by these conspiracy theorists is that no, this was actually Paul Pelosi having a gay affair with a guy that went south. Again,
What?
not providing any evidence for that, but definitely doing their absolute best to take away from the significance of what is true. And then Donald Trump Jr., our favorite person in politics, said the internet, and for our podcast listeners, the photo that he is responding to is one of like boxer briefs or underwears, tidy whities, and a hammer on top of it. And he says, the internet remains undefeated. Also, if you switch out the hammer for a red feather boa, you could be Hunter Biden in an instant. So he's laughing at someone saying, this is my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume. As in Paul Pelosi and his boxers, because it had something to do with a gay affair, and then the hammer. I don't know. I honestly didn't even get the humor there. I'm confused myself. But point is, it's a joking matter to them. It's silly. Haha, look, this is your Halloween costume, a hammer and some boxers. And haha, I'm going to tweet out a story that is fake and has no evidence along with it to take away from the significance of the story that's, should be getting focused on right now, because it's a representation of the horrible violence we have in this country promoted by politics, which is so scary and needs to be dealt with, and people aren't taking it seriously.
And it's a little bit frustrating because if it was like everyday people that were posting that kind of stuff, people would just consider it a meme. But when it's people in power that are just outright joking about that, that's just not okay. Put your political beliefs aside and realize this was a 80-year-old man?
Yeah, 82.
That was beat with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
That's just sad.
Totally agree. And like you mentioned, one of the wealthiest people in our country who now owns one of the most influential social media platforms, the son of the former president, who's also an influential political figure himself, a GOP congressman, and it goes on, but we didn't have enough time to cover everyone. You get the point. Absolutely enraging there on the part of many in the right wing.